At $20,000 a year, you are living on the edge of survival. You earn $10 an hour, and every number is a constant reminder of that. It follows you into the grocery store and the gas station, dictating every choice you make. After taxes, you have roughly $1,400 a month to cover everything, including rent. Rent takes half of that, leaving you in a room, not an apartment, with no control.
You eat what you can afford, not what you want, because the math doesn't allow for preferences.
You stop choosing. The number chooses for you, and your life is reduced to simple, rigid arithmetic. You pump exactly $20 of gas, because filling the tank means skipping something else later. Everything is a trade-off at this level, a constant, exhausting negotiation between basic needs. When the card declines, it's not because you're broke, but because the transfer hasn't cleared yet. You step aside, refreshing your app, waiting for the money to move while the world watches. You see your high school friends' lives on your screen, a different world entirely. You don't hate them, but comparing yourself at this level feels like staring directly into the sun. The fear isn't about tonight. It's the realization that this loop might be permanent. At $20,000, money doesn't serve you, you serve the money, and that's the first rule. At $20,000, money doesn't serve you, you serve the money, and that's the first rule. It's the first salary that feels like you belong somewhere, with benefits and direct deposit. You move into your own apartment, and for the first time, the silence is yours. That silence is expensive, the most expensive thing you've ever owned. You can finally eat without calculating, filling your fridge with things you actually want. Watching the tank hit full is a feeling higher levels will never truly understand. You buy new shoes, simple and functional, and wear them to work the next day. But $35,000 in a city that charges $1,200 for rent is still tight, just quieter. The panic of $20,000 is gone, replaced by a low-level awareness that one bad month could pull you back. You start noticing things you couldn't see before, like how other people's weekends look different. You're not jealous, you're just aware now, and that awareness is the first step toward looking forward. You check your account on Fridays, not in panic, but out of habit, finding that middle ground. That middle ground between exciting and terrifying is where $35,000 lives, and you start thinking about what's next. That middle ground between exciting and terrifying is where $35,000 lives, and you start thinking about what's next. It's the version that means you landed where most people do, doing everything right, but feeling ordinary. You have a one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, a reliable car, and bills that are paid. Your fridge is full, your credit card is paid off, and you can go to dinner without checking. That used to feel impossible, but now it's normal, and normal is the problem. You run the numbers for the next 30 years and realize the trajectory is the same. The answer exists now, and it changed nothing. It's just a more comfortable version of being lost. It seeps in slowly, like cold through a window you can't find, a subtle disappointment. You find out your coworker makes $80,000 for the same hours, and you can't unfind that information. The gap isn't just money, it's a different life, a different car, a different kind of freedom. You start measuring life differently, not in paychecks, but in freedom, and that changes everything. At $50,000, you can see both directions clearly, and you're grateful for the reach. Sitting in the middle of that view is the most uncomfortable place on the scale. At $50,000, you see exactly where you are and exactly where you're not. At $75,000, something shifts, not in your bank account, but in your mornings. You wake up, and money isn't the first thought anymore. It's still there, but not leading. For the first time, you think about what you want before you think about what you can afford. You moved into a better apartment, not luxury, just space, and that small change feels enormous. You turned a second bedroom into an office, a kitchen where you actually cook, a neighborhood where you sleep. The feeling of walking into something you chose instead of something you settled for changes how you carry your day. You book a flight without waiting for a sale. You buy groceries without checking the total. You're not rich, but the math works now, comfortably, quietly, without the constant negotiation. People start calling you successful, and you don't correct them, but the word feels borrowed. Because you know what $100,000 looks like from here, and $75,000 still feels like the waiting room. The altitude does it for you, and for the first time, you finally hear yourself. At $100,000, 6 figures, the number everyone chases, you finally arrive. You thought crossing it would feel like arriving somewhere, but it doesn't. It feels like walking through a door into a room bigger than you expected, with more doors you didn't know existed. Taxes take more than you imagined, and $100,000 is really $72,000 after the government takes its cut. In New York or San Francisco, $100,000 is survival money dressed in a nice title. You're rich to your family, average to your coworker, and broke compared to your neighbor. The number means everything and nothing, depending on who's looking. You stop telling people what you make, not out of humility, but protection. At $100,000, everyone has an opinion about your money, and they're not afraid to share it. The lifestyle didn't change the way you thought. It just gave you better options. But the jump from $75,000 to $100,000 doesn't feel like the jump from $20,000 to $35,000. This one changed your options, and options without clarity are just a more comfortable version of being lost. You sit with a number you chased for years and realize chasing it was the point. The hunger was the engine, and now that the engine is quiet, you're not sure what's supposed to drive you next. 6 figures is a door, not a destination, and what's on the other side is a question, not an answer. At $150,000, life changes visibly, but not dramatically. The apartment is nicer, the car is newer, and the vacations are real, not just long weekends. But the biggest change isn't material, it's social, as you stop relating to conversations about money problems. Not because you don't care, but because you forgot what it feels like. That forgetting creates distance that you don't notice until someone reminds you. The amount is small to you, but it's everything to them. You say yes without thinking, and they say thank you in a way that carries weight that you weren't expecting. That gap isn't financial, it's experiential, and you live in different worlds now. You start measuring life differently, not in paychecks, but in freedom. Can you leave this job without panic? Can you take a month off? The answer is almost. Not yet, but almost. At $150,000, money stops being the conversation and starts being the silence between conversations. At $250,000, you're in a different world, with different problems and a different language. You talk about tax optimization, asset allocation, and trust structures. Your accountant costs more than your first car, and the people around you earn similar numbers. Dinners where nobody checks the bill, weekends where nobody suggests the cheap option. Cost stopped being a variable in the equation, not because anyone is showing off, but because it's just not there. You stopped explaining your life to people who don't live at this altitude, and the language doesn't translate. The distance you felt looking up from $20,000 is now the distance someone feels looking up at you. You understand both sides, which makes it lonelier, not less. At $500,000, money becomes invisible. You don't check prices, you don't check your balance, and decisions aren't about cost anymore. They're about time, and everything is measured in time now. What costs you hours? What saves you hours? What earns while you sleep? Your problems have different names: estate planning, trust structures, capital gains. Words that didn't exist in your vocabulary at $20,000. The isolation is real, not loneliness, something else. The person you were at $20,000 wouldn't recognize you. And you wouldn't know how to explain this life to them without sounding like someone you once resented.
At $1 million, you don't say it out loud. Nobody at this level does.
The number exists in tax documents and wire transfers and conversations with attorneys. You walk into rooms where decisions are made, not because of fame, but because your judgment is useful. That's a different kind of invitation, not social, structural. The distance from $20,000 is permanent now, not just financial, psychological, emotional. You remember the parking lot, the $5 meal, the declined card. You remember it the way you remember a country you lived in as a child. Familiar, but foreign. Yours, but not anymore.
At $1 million, money stops measuring your worth and starts measuring your reach. And reach changes everything it touches, including you.
Somewhere right now, someone is making $10 an hour, sitting in a car, eating something cheap.
They think this is about the number. It's not. It's about what the number does to the distance.
The paycheck hits every 2 weeks, and it takes whoever shows up.